Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 24th, 2026 Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Clerk Hodges, could you do us the honors, please?
Absolutely. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for all other county service districts, is meeting in regular session on February 24th, 2026. Commissioner Snyder?
Here.
Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Vice Chair Willie?
Here.
Chair Harrington?
Here. Thank you, Vice Chair Willie, for joining us remotely, and Commissioner Fye is away at the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. Would everyone who's able please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is our first of two public communication sessions. This is the opportunity for members of our community to come and share any of their thoughts with us for up to 2 minutes an individual, 10 minutes total for the group. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone who wishes to do so?
We do. The first two will be Wendy Mortensen and Bob Terry.
We're on Romac together.
I know, beauty for age, right?
Go ahead, Ms. Mortensen.
Okay. Do I give my name and what I'm here for? Okay, Wendy Mortensen, and I'm here to discuss Senate Bill 1586. And I represent all CPO members, and especially those who make their living, either make their living farming or forestry. And we were successful in doing that because of the Washington County's world-class soils, climate, and our state and county land use planning system that protects us from needless sprawl into prime farmland. And we're asking you to please oppose SB 1586. Do not cede your planning and zoning authority to the state of Oregon. This is what SB 1586 expects you to do, to bring 1,700 acres of our prime farmland into the urban growth boundary for no reason other than speculation. It's supposed to be jobs, but there's no guarantee on jobs. No up-to-date venture, no objective study or information suggests this is anything other than a speculative venture to enrich some landowners and corporations with no proven benefits to county residents. Are there any questions?
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Do I leave now and leave this with?
You can stay if you wish
okay.
or leave.
You can stay until
Okay.
Mr. Terry, and then we'll call up the next two. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Terry.
Well, thank you, and good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I'm Commissioner Bob Terry, a resident of our county for nearly 40 years. Many of our citizens have been coming before you now for nearly 1.5 years requesting changes to our county voting procedures in nearly a year and a half. For most part, they have been ignored with little to no changes, if anything at all. All these requests and information have been bringing to our county in compliance with federal, state, county constitution, or charter. They have requested and asked if any are done our home rule authority. We would certainly agree that we just seem relatively small city that through the city charter that reads very similar to in nature to our county charter. We, your constituents, are asking ourselves, what are you waiting for? Someone to sue the county or misuse of its assets resulting in defalcations of funds, further additional audits, investigations that in some opinions could result in potentially employee and elected officials having even personal liabilities beyond county responsibility or allowed by statute to cover there are your responsibility as potentially being aware of these legal defalcations and monetary losses by knowing and having bought before you, ignored or intentionally discharged and allowed to continue. These citizens have and continue to offer to work with you during work sessions or committee appointments or any other creative means. They have worked hard at researching far in excess of 4+ years of these issues and spent more than $10,000 to you and others in the government arena for information and study material and voting procedures and much more on these issues. I could go on much more with these issues. You will hear much more soon on these issues this evening. I encourage you to listen closely this evening for the 5-minute session. I will wrap up with this thought and words of thought for you to ponder. When we all pass on to our next life, some of us believe in and count on the Trinity of heaven. Those of us who have asked for forgiveness and have asked, and those of who have asked for forgiveness and live in no fear of the book of life. And the fact, look forward at the gates to hear or perhaps read it aloud ourselves.
Mr. Terry.
We'll enter in peace. Others will hope to be assigned to be lifeguards at the lake of fire. Good evening and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone else?
We do. The next two will be Robin Price and Nancy Hawk.
Ms. Price and Ms. Hawk? So no Ms. Price? Oh, here she comes. Okay. So Ms. Price, we'll start with you. Thank you.
Hi there. Do I need to push anything?
Nope.
Nope. Hi, I'm just coming here. This is only for 2 minutes, and I thought it was a great opportunity just to introduce myself because I plan on coming back when I'm a little more organized. I'm here to talk about the transitional housing unit that is near my home. In 2018, when the affordable bond measure came out for $652 million, I said, let me sign this. I wanted it to provide for people that were facing homelessness. I wanted to help people with treatment disorders, get women off the streets. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that this was going to be used for a center for people coming out of prison with no background checks, violent offenders, level 2 and 3 sexual offenders. Had I had known that, I would have never voted for that. I'm very disappointed that I have to come down here and watch my neighbors do the same thing. I just wanted to state a few facts. While in prison, none of these people receive any kind of treatment whatsoever. So they're going to be released from the community with no treatment. They're going to come into an area with 3,000 to 4,000 kids, and they're going to receive treatment at a facility that we were told was going to be used for people trying to overcome drug addictions and alcohol, that type of thing. And I don't know if you know this, but 90% of the women who live on the streets have been sexually assaulted. And we're going to put them in a hotel that is going to have sexual offenders living there. How is that going to work? How is that going to help these people? They have been traumatized living on the streets. And I am asking you to, we need background checks. We need to not have sexual offenders living there, and we do not need criminal, violent, person-to-person offenders living there as well. We have schools nearby.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Ms. Price.
we need to shut that down.
So I assume the transitional housing program that you're talking about is the one on Cornell Road?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. But I also want to make sure you're clear on this has not been set up for folks who are leaving prison. Rather, these...
That's not what we hear. We hear all vague
There are all
answers.
kinds of things being said, so I really
It's not
recommend...
organized.
that you look at the Washington County website for the Cornell Road project.
Then things have changed because that's not what we've been told over and over and over.
This is not an time to debate that. We've had the
Oh, yeah, no, I'll be
opportunity
back,
to
trust me.
hear your
I'll-
comments.
I'm going to be back because the safety of our
Ms.
children
Price,
is
please,
what's most important.
please, let's be respectful. You've
I'll
had
see
your
you
2
back at
minutes. Thank you very much. Is it Ms. Hawk?
Yes, Nancy
Thank you.
Hawk. I guess you can hear me. Well, I must have signed the wrong paper because I didn't have my glasses on. I didn't intend to speak, but I'm happy just to say that I did come because I do oppose Senate Bill 1586, and I try to stay aware of everything that's going on, and the way I found out about that, I'm going to start rambling, and I know there's 2 minutes. I just want to say, I listened to Commissioner Fai's opposition at the Senate hearing, and it made a lot of sense to me, so I'm just want to say that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone else?
We do. We have 2 more I think we have time for. The first would be Aaron Nichols and then David Williams.
Welcome, Mr. Nichols. Go ahead.
Thank you. Chair Harrington, members of the commission. My name is Aaron Nichols, and I live at 11,000 Northwest Jackson Quarry Road, Hillsboro, Oregon. I farm next door. I'm here to express my extreme disappointment in this body, who endorsed the poorly written, poorly conceived, and deeply unpopular land grab that's run this time as Senate Bill 1586. It is not possible that this commission made their decision based on facts. 0 facts related to jobs or economic analysis have been presented on this proposal. Hillsborough City Council President last Tuesday agreed with the clear language of the bill that data centers would be expressly allowed and, if allowed, would quickly cover our best farm soils. Further, as the City Council acknowledged, the tax credits that are supposed to serve as cover for this grab are so last minute they seem to include workers who will never set foot in nor pay income taxes in Oregon. The losses are very clear, and hundreds of people from Washington County have joined hundreds from around the state to oppose this bill. At last check, well over 90% of the testimony was opposed. Clearly, this commission was also not representing their constituents when endorsing this bill. The action was frustrating, but the message it sends and the precedent it sets is truly chilling. It was not lost on us that the messenger of this decision was Commissioner Treese, who is running for the chair of this commission. Is that then what we can expect from a Treese administration? That the county will put its finger in the air, see where the wind is blowing, and follow dutifully along? Will Commissioner Treese sit with her face to those in power and her back to her constituents as she did last week? That is how the county has done business for a long time, but it's not acceptable to the 90% of us who expect fact-based decision-making and politicians who respect and listen to us. 90% of us expect better. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Commissioners, my name's Dave Williams, and I am a 29-year resident of unincorporated Washington County. For last 23 years of my 40 years of employment with USDA Wildlife Services, I've been able to work with the Oregon Department of Agriculture, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Service, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the vast majority of county boards throughout the state for 23 years. I have grown a great appreciation for the relationships of agriculture and wildlife and the importance of agriculture to wildlife. Economics have been discussed here. I also know that with the volatility of the economy, we see some of the major corporations lay people off, but in the downturns, agriculture keeps chugging along. Agriculture is the fabric of our community. Our human communities come together at food markets and the weekend affairs that all of the services for agriculture come together. The public loves to know where their food and fiber comes from. But really, most importantly, in my soul is the importance that agriculture lands have to our wildlife. These big data centers and everything paved over, nothing is good for wildlife there. We need to hold on to that, not just for the local wildlife community, but you must know that internationally, birds that fly throughout the Pacific Flyway, they have to stop here and refuel, either going north or south. And it would be terrible for my children not to have the wildlife that we have right now.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. As we have received multiple testimony on 1586, Senate Bill 1586, I have a very brief statement that I would like to read on behalf of the board. Thank you for your comments related to Senate Bill 1586, the Oregon Jobs Act. We understand that decisions related to land designations are not simple, and these lands in particular have been part of a long-standing debate. During the original public process of the Metro Region Urban and Rural Reserve designations, the lands at issues were designated to be urbanizable. However, due to the complex legal and legislative history of the Washington County Urban and Rural Reserves, the decisions to make adjustments to these designations is squarely in the state legislature's domain, not the county commission. Until that authority is returned to the county, these comments are best directed to your state legislators and the full state legislature. That being said, this bill has been discussed at our work session, including this afternoon, where we focused on impacts to the county's workforce capacity and cost to meet requirements. We also discussed the land use portion of the bill. At this time, the board continues to support the legislation as amended most recently. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to tonight's consent agenda, which consists of 5 different items. 2 items from Health and Human Services and 3 items from Land Use and Transportation. What are the wishes of the board regarding to tonight's consent agenda?
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Next, we'll move on to public hearings. The first is with regard to ordinance number 909. Do we have a motion to read A, engrossed ordinance 909 by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, Commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Mr. Barnett, could you please read A, engrossed ordinance number 909 by title only, please?
Certainly, Chair. A, engrossed ordinance 909, an ordinance amending the Washington County Cornelius Urban Planning Area Agreement, an element of the Washington County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you. And before we go any further, I'd like to turn it over to our other staff experts for a brief staff report. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. Teresa Cherniak, Community Planning Section Manager, and Michelle Miller will give the presentation.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Board of Commissioners. I'm Michelle Miller, Senior Planner with Land Use and Transportation. Tonight we're here for the second engrossment hearing for amending the Washington County Cornelius Urban Planning Area Agreement. So these are proposed amendments to our Urban Planning Area Agreement with the City of Cornelius, and it also includes Exhibit A, the map of the urban planning area. There were some needed changes for the Cornelius Urban Planning Area map, and thus we have proposed these engrossments. The Planning Commission recommended adoption of these changes at their hearing, and the board authorized engrossment earlier in January. The first public hearing for the ordinance, the engrossed ordinance, was on February 3rd, and to date we have received no comments about these changes. Thus, the recommendation is to conduct the public hearing this evening and adopt A engrossed ordinance number 909, and then by separate action, adopt the associated findings.
Open a public hearing. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone who wishes to do so?
There was no one who signed up ahead of time. Is there anyone in the auditorium wishing to speak on the staff report just presented? Raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone. Is there anyone online who wishes to provide comment, utilize the raise hand function? Not seeing anyone. Chair Harrington.
I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on. And with that, I will close tonight's public hearing. Were you able to hear when I opened the public hearing? Okay, terrific. And at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to adopt A engrossed ordinance 909.
I move to adopt A engrossed ordinance number 909.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adopt A engrossed ordinance 909, an ordinance amending the Washington County City of Cornelius Urban Planning Area Agreement, an element of the Washington County Comprehensive Plan. Clerk Hodges, could you take the roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Treese?
Yes.
Vice Chair Willie?
Yes.
Chair Harrington.
Yes. The ordinance, A engrossed ordinance 909 passes unanimously 4-0. And I'd like to, at this juncture, ask for a motion to adopt the findings for A engrossed ordinance 909 and authorize the chair to sign the resolution and order memorializing the action.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. And now we're going to move to our second public hearing for this evening. And this one is related to our Rural and Natural Resource Plan and Community Development Code. So at this juncture, I would like to ask for a motion to read ordinance number 912 by title only.
I move to read by title only.
Second. All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Over to you, Mr. Barnett.
Chair. Proposed ordinance 912, an ordinance amending the Rural Natural Resource Plan and the Community Development Code relating to the allowance of rural accessory dwelling units and rural historic accessory dwelling units.
And before we go any further, I'm going to turn it over to our staff experts and ask for a staff presentation.
Thank you again, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. Teresa Cherniak, Community Planning Section Manager, and Todd Borkowitz will give the presentation.
Well, good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Todd Borkowitz, Senior Planner in LUT's Community Planning Group. So I'm here to present ordinance number 912, which would allow accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, in rural residential areas of the county outside of an urban growth boundary. We provided a background on this ordinance in a board work session on February 17th. And so here's what we'll be covering today. A brief background of the two rural ADU types that are allowed by the state, an overview of allowances and rules for these rural ADU types, feedback received from the Planning Commission and community members on allowing these rural ADU types in Washington County. We'll then share details of the proposed ordinance, including PC's recommendation and testimony received, followed by the proposed engrossment of the filed ordinance and staff's recommendation. So as you may recall, state law enables counties to allow two types of rural ADUs. Counties can allow rural historic ADUs, or the conversion of a historic home in the rural area to an ADU when a single detached dwelling is built. Counties can also allow rural ADUs, which is the creation of one new ADU that is accessory to an existing single detached dwelling on the same lot. Initiated in part by public interest in rural ADUs, the board in 2025 authorized a rural ADU ordinance through adoption of the 2025-2027 Planning Work Program. After presenting the topic of rural ADUs in a PC work session last June, we released an issue paper on ADUs in the rural area and held a 30-day public comment period. Feedback we received helped inform development of Ordinance 912, which we filed on December 3rd. So here's a quick reminder of what an ADU is: a residential structure used in connection with or auxiliary to a single detached dwelling on the same lot. They're typically less than 1,000 square feet, have their own kitchen, bathroom, and sleeping area, and can either be attached to the primary dwelling or detached from it. They can also be a converted attic, basement, or garage space. So Oregon Revised Statutes, or ORS, limits the two rural ADU types only to rural residential districts outside a UGB. In Washington County, these land use districts are AF5, AF10, and RR5. These districts are not required by state law to be preserved for exclusive farm or forest use. In addition, the rural ADU types are not allowed in designated urban reserves and are only allowed on lots at least 2 acres in size. So state law has other criteria. So state law has other criteria prescribing where counties can allow rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs. These are minimum requirements that counties must uphold. Counties are allowed to create rules that are more restrictive than state law. Ordinance 912 proposes to mostly apply the state's minimum requirements, with stricter requirements proposed only in a few key areas. But per ORS, to build a rural ADU, a lot must contain one existing single detached dwelling unit, not be in a state-defined groundwater restricted area unless the ADU will be served by an outside water source, be served by a structural fire protection provider and have adequate access for firefighting, and not be subject to a state-defined nuisance order or pending action. To build a rural historic ADU, a lot must contain one historic home, which the state defines as a building, as a house built between 1850 and 1945. So here's a map showing where state law, one back please. Here's a map showing where state law and county ordinance would allow rural ADUs. It is not showing eligibility for rural historic ADUs, only eligibility for rural ADUs. So eligible lots are shown in blue, ineligible lots are shown in red. Lots within a designated groundwater restricted area, mostly in the hatched area in the south portion of the county, are only shown as eligible lots when supplied by an outside water provider. Lots not served by a structural fire protection provider, mostly in the reverse hatched area in the north and west portion of the county, are shown there in red. Here's a map showing where the state law allows rural historic ADUs. Like the previous map, eligible lots are shown in blue. Unlike the previous map, this map does not contain the hatched areas that restrict where rural historic ADUs are allowed. While this map contains considerably more potentially eligible lots, the actual number of eligible lots will be significantly less, since a lot must also contain a historic home in order to qualify for a rural historic ADU. State law includes several additional requirements that counties must apply in rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs when a county chooses to allow them. The left column lists each requirement. The other columns show the requirements, how the requirements apply to each rural ADU type. For both types, lots may not be subdivided so that the primary dwelling and rural ADU are on different lots. A primary dwelling and rural ADU must be considered one unit when determining density, and ADUs must comply with applicable regulations for sanitation and wastewater. In addition, while a new rural ADU can be attached to its primary dwelling, a new primary dwelling and its associated historic home converted to a rural historic ADU must be separate structures. Lastly, the state allows counties to require that a new primary dwelling and its associated rural historic ADU be served by the same water source. Oh,
I am sorry, let me get to the right place. There we go. This is where we should have been. I'm sorry, this was very touchy.
My apologies. Okay, so if we can advance one further. Here are more state requirements that a county must apply if it chooses to allow the rural ADU types. Floor area limits include 900 square feet for a rural ADU and up to 120% of the historic home square footage for a rural historic ADU. A rural ADU must be within 100 feet of its primary dwelling. A rural historic ADU may not be rebuilt if lost to fire, and both rural ADU types may not allow vacation occupancy. So while this last requirement is not in the rural historic ADU statute, we believe that vacation occupancy is not allowed anywhere in the rural area. So now on to the proposal. Ordinance 912 would update 2 policies in the Rural Natural Resources Plan and several sections of the Community Development Code in order to allow rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs within rural residential districts outside of UGB, subject to certain limitations and requirements. The proposed amendments would also give needed clarity and consistency to other related CDC sections. So as I indicated earlier, Ordinance 912 proposes to mostly apply the state's statutory requirements and add only minimal additional requirements. As such, Ordinance 912 proposes to apply the same requirements for fire protection and nuisances to both rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs, and would also apply the same prohibition on vacation occupancy for both rural ADU types. And while state law allows counties to require that a primary dwelling and associated rural ADU or rural historic ADU have the same water source, state law does not require it, so Ordinance 912 does not propose it. One back. Okay. So here's the impact of the county's proposed rules for Ordinance 912. The rules would not change where rural ADUs would be allowed, but would further limit where rural historic ADUs would be allowed. Areas in red contain lots not served by a structural fire protection service provider, so Ordinance 912 would not allow rural historic ADUs on these lots. So last week we noted the generally positive public feedback that we heard allowing rural ADUs and highlighted the several inquiries we regularly receive from community members about allowing them or about building them. Testimony we received to date on Ordinance 912 has been consistent with what we've long been hearing. Positive feedback included highlighting the many benefits of rural ADUs we shared earlier in this presentation. Some community members asked about whether some of the statutory requirements for rural ADUs could be waived, including the maximum 100-foot separation between primary dwelling and rural ADU, and prohibition on rural ADUs in groundwater restricted areas. Others shared concerns about the use of rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs for vacation occupancy and about the potential impacts on current farming practices. So the PC considered Ordinance 912 in a hearing on January 7th. PC members primarily discussed the state's statutory requirements for rural ADUs that some community members inquired about in their testimony. Ultimately, the PC voted unanimously 7-0 to recommend board approval of Ordinance 912. So after the PC hearing, we identified a needed ordinance clarification to the proposed CDC language. The filed ordinance implied, but did not explicitly specify, that rural ADU types would only be allowed outside a UGB as provided by state statute. Therefore, we propose engrossment of ordinance number 912 to clarify that rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs would only be allowed in rural residential districts outside a UGB. So this evening, we ask that the board conduct the public hearing, order engrossment of ordinance number 912, continue the hearing for the engrossed ordinance to April 7th and April 28th, and direct staff to prepare and provide required notice consistent with county requirements. And that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Board members, I have 2 specific questions. Commissioner Willie, do you have any questions?
I don't have a question. Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I appreciate the information that you provided at our one-on-ones recently. This is I'm a proponent of ADUs, and I think this is a well thought out and well planned process. So good job on the work that you've done, and I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. I ditto those comments, but I do have 2 specific questions. I'll take hopefully the easiest one first. On the prior slide 17. In the last item, staff proposes engrossment to clarify rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs would only be allowed in rural residential districts outside of UGB. But one of your earlier slides talked about for rural ADUs not being, and I can't remember for the historic ones, can't be done in urban reserves. Urban reserves are still outside of the UGB, but I thought the earlier presentation said that the ADUs would not be allowed in urban reserve, which is why I'm asking for a clarification.
Go ahead.
No, you are correct on both. So it is not allowed outside the UGB, and then there's an additional restriction or within an urban reserve that is outside the UGB.
So the engrossment, once we engross this thing, it will have it correct?
That is correct.
It's not only outside of the UGB, but for at least the rural ADUs, based on my recollection, also outside of urban reserve.
Yeah, so just to clarify, just to clarify, and so in our state statute specifically says outside of UGB, and we did not carry that language within our originally filed ordinance. We're proposing to carry that to minimize any unintended consequences. So
we have a couple
that is confusing.
Yeah.
If you go back several slides, you'll see that the recommended ordinance does not allow said rural ADUs in urban reserve. Urban reserves are outside of UGBs. So that last statement is not technically correct because rural ADUs are being restricted to outside the UGB and outside of urban reserves.
Are you saying those are redundant statements at this point?
No.
So the last addition is an addition. So we are keeping all of the other items that we said, and then we're also adding, and it must also be outside of the UGB. It's for a specific situation that we hadn't anticipated, where we do have a couple areas in South County and River Terrace area where they still do, they're inside the UGB technically, but until the county does its ordinance to change it to FD20, it is still got the rural designations. So it's a unusual situation where you're inside the UGB, but you have the rural land use districts. And so we wanted to make clear you couldn't do a rural ADU there. You have to be outside. plus you have to be outside of an urban reserve, plus you have to be outside of a groundwater
You
restricted
and I are
area.
in agreement, the way that slide summarized it as a result of the engrossment
It could have, been
lost
misconstrued.
that earlier nuance, which is why I wanted to make sure. Then I have a question. I don't know which slide number this is, or the one that I had a question on. Much earlier in the presentation, you have a slide that is specific to rural ADUs. And it's one of the earliest map slides, and I still find it confusing. Keep going back. Okay, so it's for those items that are blue but are also within the area that also have the cross-hatching. So I need to make sure I've got this straight in my brain. So the areas that are in blue where the background is white, those I get, that those ADUs are allowed.
Right.
Okay? It's the ones where there's also the crosshatch. It's since the blue and the crosshatch overlap, those have the groundwater restrictions, and so the water has to be supplied by an outside water provider.
Correct.
Not through like a well for the groundwater supply, but they are still allowed, right? Under that provision.
They are allowed if provided by an outside water provider, and that's.
Otherwise, they'd be red.
Yes,
Okay.
within that hatched area.
Yes.
Correct.
Got it.
So, that is the one area that has an outside provider.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. I read it right. I doubted myself. So I really appreciate your spending time with me on that. Okay. So thank you very much for your patience, everyone, with my questions. And at this juncture, I would like to open the public hearing, which would be the first public hearing, but we haven't engrossed it yet. That's the part that I find a little weird. Because don't we want to have a public hearing on the engrossed ordinance?
So the first public hearing needs to be on this first proposed ordinance, and then you
And then we
order
do the
engrossment.
engrossment.
And then
Okay.
there'll be 2 more hearings on those engrossed,
Thank
the
you.
engrossed ordinance.
I get really a little paranoid about doing the engrossments correctly. So thank you for making sure I know what I'm doing. Okay, so at this juncture, I would like to open a public hearing on the original proposed ordinance 912. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone who wishes to testify?
We do, Chair Harrington. We have one, Neil Olson.
Welcome, Mr. Olson.
Try to keep this fast, but
No worries, you've got a number of minutes.
so as you guys all know, the land use laws are very complex, and like I'm a Oregon resident my whole life. My whole family's grown or lived in the county for over 100 years, and I work in the natural resources. Our family has a small farm, and also work in the state forest 90% of the time, which 70% of the revenue goes to the county, depending on which county we're working in, which mostly it's at Washington County. But anyway, back to the ordinance. I think everything in it is good, but there's like a lot of complicated things in there as far as like the wildfire hazard stuff that's going on, because a lot of that was repealed, I think, in some maps, but yet people in that restriction have to jump through more loops. And there's, like 197 where it says, let's see, I think it was in the staff reports. They removed the wildfire and defensible state, but yet we have to provide letters that say we're protected by a rural fire service. Like we pay taxes for that service, but yet now we have to provide letters and then more And then also, the state, I think, allows forestry ADUs of some sort if you're in the natural resources, like if you're, but yet there's just more and more conservation stuff getting put into place where it's harder and harder for us to build a house out in rural areas of Washington County. But yeah, like in 197, there's one thing that stuck out to me. It was housing that is safe, accessible, and affordable in a community of their choice should be available to every Oregonian. And then there's a bunch of stuff I highlighted, but essentially there's 2.7 of total employment of the county. Agricultural sector covers approximately 2.7 of the total employment of the county, and that farm use is 161 some thousand acres in 1974, and then the forest covered areas is 234,000 acres, and then it's like 63,000 is public, 85,000 is big industry, and 86,000 in private ownership. But there's hardly any housing choices for people out there.
Mr. Olson, I need to have you conclude your remarks. So if you can.
Yeah. So I guess to sum it up, and it'd be like more restrictions on certain people in the county for ADUs versus other people in the counties. So it's not very equal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hopefully there's more hearings on it and more public input, I guess is what I'm hoping for.
Thank you for concluding your comments. Before I move on to see if there's anyone else, I would like to suggest the following. This ordinance the state allows us to support rural ADUs and rural historic ADUs, but we have to take action in order to enable that in our community development code. This proposal is doing the required state analysis and identifying those areas that per the state and our planning commission would enable that. So I believe we do have some common ground here in terms of enabling additional housing units. I would like to suggest that you connect with our two staff members who are experts in this proposal and talk with them about your questions on what this engrossed ordinance would do. And you are correct. We will have two more public hearings, one April 7th and another April 28th. So hopefully there's time for you to get together with either Teresa or Todd and see if this proposal helps the situations that you're looking at or not.
Yeah, earlier today I called Todd because I was having a lot of questions, and land use stuff is just.
It is complex, so thank you very much.
Yeah, like you work 40 hours a week, try to take care of your family. You don't really have much time to read all the land use laws, so it gives me a headache.
So there's still some time. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and thank you for paying attention. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone else?
Is there anyone else in the auditorium wishing to speak on the staff report just presented? Raise your hand. I'm not seeing any. Is there anyone online who would like to make comments on the staff report? Please utilize the raise hand function. I'm not seeing any raised hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you. Seeing none, I would like to close this first public hearing and ask for a motion to engross this ordinance to include the changes described in the staff report and to continue the hearings to date certain, April 7th and April 28th of 2026, as well as the motion to direct staff to prepare and mail notices of the amendments consistent with the requirements of Title 10 of the county charter.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. I need to take a brief timeout, though, to see if staff had anything you wanted to get into the record with regard to the first public hearing, or can we just follow up subsequently?
I don't think there's any additional thing that we need to share. Thank you.
Okay, I forgot to do that before I asked for the motion, so thank you for your grace. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk Hodges, could you please take the roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Treese?
Yes.
Vice Chair Willie?
Yes.
Chair Harrington?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously 4-0. And did I close the public hearing?
You did.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the second public comment period for this evening's meeting. This is an opportunity for members of our community to come and share their thoughts with the Board of Commissioners for up to 5 minutes an individual, 30 minutes maximum in total. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone signed up who wishes to do so, who hasn't testified yet?
We do. The first two are Mary Halkiopoulos and Jill Latre.
Good evening. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. I'm Mary Halkiopoulos, a resident of Washington County. Section 303 of the Help America Vote Act, or HAVA, requires states to verify newly registered voters participating in federal elections. To assist with this verification, the federal government established the Help America Vote Verification System, or HAVV, which has been operated by the Social Security Administration since 2004. 45 states, including Oregon, currently use this system. The remaining states use alternate systems. To verify the identity of people who have no valid driver's license or state ID, states enter the person's name, date of birth, and the last 4 digits of their Social Security number into the HAVV system. The data is compared with Social Security records and returns findings in these categories. No match found, that means no match between the person entered in Social Security records. A single match alive, one single person matched, who is alive. Single match deceased, likewise single person deceased matched. Multiple matches alive. Information matched several living persons, so many may share the last 4 digits of Social Security. Multiple matches deceased. Information matched several deceased persons for the same reason. Multiple matches mixed. Information matched at least 1 living and 1 deceased person, and some of them are just unprocessed because there's missing or invalid data. To put this into context, from January 2011 through today, in the U.S. nationwide, there have been 104,445,083 HAVV transactions, of which 28% have been a no match. That's over 29 million people. And 1% has been single match deceased. That's over 1.2 million people. That means at least 29% or over 30 million people should not have been registered. Either false information was provided or at minimum, some sort of follow-up was required. Similarly, in Oregon, from January 2011 to the present, actually today, there have been 818,539 HAVV transactions, of which 29% have been a no match. That's over 235,000 people, and 2% have been a single match deceased. That's almost 19,000. That means at least 31% should not have been registered. That's over 254,000 people. Either false information was provided or at minimum, some sort of follow-up was required. So how was this information handled? Was there follow-up? Were these people registered? Good questions. No mandatory follow-up procedures appear in Oregon statutes directing elections personnel on next steps. In fact, this information is confidential per HAVV and Oregon statutes. Per ORS 260.715, providing false information during registration is a Class C felony, which is punishable up to 5 years in prison and a fine of $125,000. But according to ChatGPT, Brave AI, and Grok, no cases of imprisonment or fines have been known to occur in Oregon for making false statements to register to vote. It's important to note here that HAV interactions and results appear to be some of the unredacted data that is being contested between the federal government and Oregon. The very information that Oregon doesn't want to share contains information obtained from the federal government. However, sharing our unredacted voter rolls with the government would demonstrate how the HAVV information is being used and if people who shouldn't be registered to vote are being registered. This is yet another testament to the disaster of our voter rolls and the very lax self-attestation registration system used in Oregon. Strongly worded warnings of penalties and bureaucratic HAVV submissions with no follow-up are meaningless. These processes expose our voter rolls and elections to the worst possible opportunity for fraud and further demonstrate why we need to localize our voter registrations and elections. And thank God we have home rule so we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Latre, please go ahead.
Good evening, Chair Harrington and Commissioners. My name is Jill Latre, a Washington County resident. It's been admitted by Oregon's Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, election officials, and other governmental agencies that there are individuals on our voter rolls that are not qualified to vote. The number of ineligible voters on the rolls is unknown. Regardless, each active voter is sent a ballot every election, and inactive voters may also receive ballots. How can one prove a ballot that's been received through the vote-by-mail process was in fact received, filled out, and returned by 1, an eligible voter, and 2, the person named on the ballot? Without clean voter rolls and voting in person with ID, one cannot. According to the Secretary of State, Tobias Reed, Oregon has the most secure, fairest, most accurate elections in the entire country. And one reason he can make that claim is because we perform signature verification. Despite his claims, signature verification does not confirm a ballot was submitted by an eligible voter or the named voter, but it is currently the only means used to verify a voter's identity. I will list multiple problems with signature verification. All verification software, Bluecrest in Washington County, accesses the Oregon Centralized Voter Registration System, the OCVR, database via the internet and is exposed to potential hacking. The Bluecrest website, accessed via the internet during signature verification, is not secure, as noted during multiple elections. Oregon DMV has been hacked, making our signatures accessible. Signatures can be easily forged sufficient to satisfy the verification check. The verification software has an adjustable setting that can be set at different tolerances during an election per the Washington County election staff. Manual verification is often conducted in a few seconds, even with obvious differences. Manual verification does not always adhere to the procedures outlined in the vote-by-mail procedure manual. Over the years, multiple Washington County election office staff tasked with performing signature verification have said to me personally or to the public, signature verification is subjective. This statement is further supported by their additional comments, including, we don't want to make people angry. We're questioning a person's signature. People get defensive. People don't want to make a trip to the election office when their signature has been rejected. And we want people to be able to vote. Making someone angry or wanting people to be able to vote should not be a part of the decision to accept or reject a ballot signature. The decision should be based on facts and not feelings. The question should simply be, does the ballot signature match the signature on file? More evidence supporting the subjectivity has been reported before. 2 observers were able to review 12 questionable signatures that were accepted with election manager Dan Forrester. Mr. Forrester concurred 2 or 3 of those 12 signatures should not have been accepted. The vote-by-mail procedure manual link states on page 32, if the signature does not match the most current registration record, review all signatures contained in the registration record in the OCVR to determine the validity of the signature. Observers have witnessed hundreds of obviously non-matching signatures quickly accepted without reviewing all the signatures on file. Once a signature is accepted, that envelope is sent to the board's room to be opened and separated from the envelope. It's a very short window of time, in some cases less than a few minutes before that ballot is separated from the envelope and can no longer be located and challenged. Citizens request Washington County immediately implement a process that allows the observers to stop the signature verification process in real time when procedural violations are witnessed. This interruption needs to be able to take place without interfering with the orderly procedure at the office. There is only a limited amount of time to rectify the process and ensure signature verification is performed in a manner outlined in the manual before that envelope with the non-matching signature is opened and that ballot is counted. As Supreme Court Justice Crichton from Louisiana stated, signatures by the voter and the witness can never be and are not mere ornaments. By verifying the identity of the elector, their purpose is to prevent abuses and assure accuracy in absentee voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Littre. Clerk Hodges, do we have anyone else tonight?
Is there anyone else in the auditorium wishing to make a comment on any county-related topic for up to 5 minutes? Please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands. Is there anyone online via Zoom who wishes to make public comment for up to 5 minutes? Please utilize the raise hand function. I'm not seeing any hands. Chair Harrington.
Thank you. And with that, we'll close tonight's public comment period, the second one, and we'll move on to board announcements. I'll start in announcing that next Tuesday, March 3rd, we'll start the County Board of Commissioners work session at 9. We'll then pause that so that we can convene as the Housing Authority Board of Directors, or the Chabad meeting at 10 a.m., followed by the Commission Board meeting immediately following the Chabad meeting. Then we'll reconvene in work session later in the day, but no later than time certain at 1 or 2 p.m. On Tuesday, March 10th, we'll start our day as the Clean Water Services Board of Directors in that business meeting at 9, then following up appropriately as needed with the Clean Water Services Board of Directors work session. We're hoping that will be done somewhere no later than 11 or 11:15 so that we can then convene as the Washington County Board of Commissioners and specifically the work session. On Thursday, March 12th, we'll have a Board of Commissioners roundtable starting at 1 o'clock. On Tuesday, March 17th, that's when we will have our afternoon Board of Commissioners work session starting at 2 p.m. And just like tonight, starting at 5:30, we'll convene as the Clean Water Services Board of Directors business meeting, and then start the Washington County Board of Commissioners business meeting at 6:30 in the evening. The following week is public school spring break, and so there will not be any board meetings that week. So don't show up on March 24th because we won't be here for board meetings. Are there any other board announcements for this evening? Seeing none, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I move for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. We're hereby adjourned. Good night, everyone.